This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio. Mino Studio is a pre- and post-production facility for all of your audio needs. Mino Studio's founder is an accredited audio engineer with top 40 and indie album credits. With over 30 years of music industry experience, Mino Studio can take your podcast from idea to reality. Contact Mino Studio at minostudio777@gmail.com for more information. That's Mino Studio spelled M-E-N-O, minostudio777@gmail.com.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays. And if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G. Find our podcast and subscribe. Well, today we've got a great show for you. We have a real estate investor extraordinaire, Kathy Fettke. She's the author of the #1 bestseller, Retire Rich with Rentals, and is host of the Real Wealth Show podcast. These are all tongue twisters for me here. Retire Rich Rentals. Say that 5 times real fast. Okay. In 2001, she became a certified personal coach and later took the coaching process to television, producing a cable show called Dream, which followed the process of 6 people going after their dreams over a 90-day period. Kathy noticed a reoccurring theme on her show. Most people didn't have time for their dreams because they were too busy working to pay the bills. Her show sponsor at the time was a real estate expert, and the segments they produced changed her life. After interviewing dozens of real estate millionaires, Kathy soon discovered their best strategies for creating passive income streams. Shortly thereafter, she and her husband began purchasing investment properties and since then learned the highs and lows of investing that can only come from hands-on experience. With a passion for and expertise in research, real estate, and economics, Kathy Fettke is a frequent guest on such media as CNN, CNBC, Fox News, NPR, CBS Market Watch, and the Wall Street Journal. In her free time, Kathy enjoys travel, hiking, rock climbing, skiing, figure skating, and surfing. She lives in Malibu, California with her husband, Rich, and their 2 daughters. Wow, you sound like a busy lady.
And when I listen to you, I get a little exhausted thinking about it.
I was like, when do you find time to do all the fun stuff, you know?
Oh my gosh, September's been almost all fun. It's been a much needed break, but back to work I go.
Great. Well, you live in a wonderful place where you can enjoy, I think, almost everything on that list. Hiking, rock climbing, well, I don't know about the figure skating, but definitely surfing.
Just over the hill, I could find some ice. Yep.
There you go. Yeah. Well, Kathy, I just kind of gave an overview of your background, but I'm really interested, and I think the folks listening would be real interested to hear, how did you get into real estate and what prompted you to really just dive in and say, this is it?
Well, first I wanted to figure out how I got in the 50 and up club. Like, when did that happen? I feel like I'm 25, It's like, oh, anyway, I heard you say that and I was like, wow, she's old. Oh, wait, that's me. I'm an old dog.
Oh, man. Well, I wouldn't have guessed that looking at your picture here. I'll tell you, you definitely handle it well.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be aging in America at this time, of life, when we get to have the vitamins and the exercise and the access to things that really keep us young much longer. I mean, I know I would say, you probably remember when you were younger, someone in their 50s probably seemed really old, but I don't know about you, but I just feel like a kid still.
I know. I keep telling myself, yeah, really. I'm just a rock and roller at heart.
Yeah, exactly. So how did I get started? Well, if you asked me 20 years ago if I would be running a multi-million-dollar company in real estate development and investments, I would have laughed. I really had almost no interest in things financial. I would, go reluctantly with my husband to meet with the financial planner, and I would just, kind of like feel like I had my hands over my ears going, blah, 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 I don't care, just invest it, just do a good job. I was one of those people. And, unfortunately, I think that's most of the world is like, just take care of my money, make it work for me.
Right.
Yeah. And, but then life happened to us, and like it does to many people. We had done everything we were told. We invested the 10% of our income in investments in our IRAs and Roths and 401ks, and we saved 10% for emergency, and we put another 10% aside for stuff we wanted, and cars and vacations, and we were doing it all right. We had all the buckets. We had just bought our first home in Lafayette, California, just outside of San Francisco, and went big. We got a 4,000 square foot, 6-bedroom home, just, with the best school districts. And, we were playing the game. And Rich's book was taking off. He had just come out with a book called Extreme Success, which his publisher was Simon & Schuster, and they were billing him as the new Tony Robbins. And he was traveling all around the country. And like I said, just, we were at the top of our game. I was allowed to stay at home with the children, which is what I wanted. I quit my job at ABC News to be, a housewife and a mom. So one day I was cooking on our granite counters with our organic foods I had just grown, and the kids were drawing pictures on the table next to me. Everything was just perfect when Rich walked in and had tears in his eyes. He had just been to the doctor. They had found melanoma on his forehead and leg, and more test results showed that it most likely had spread, and melanoma is fast moving. And when it spreads, you don't have much time left. So the doctor looked at him and said, you probably got 6 months. So, talk about a game changer, right? So, I want to just tell you now he's fine and the doctor was wrong, but we didn't know. We didn't know at the time. And if you were told that news, you probably wouldn't want to spend the next 6 months trying to make money, right?
Mm-hmm. You got that.
Yeah, you're going to do what you want. So, we had a discussion, and, for some reason, maybe it's female intuition or denial or whatever, faith. I just didn't believe it. I knew that Rich would be okay. He's a extreme athlete. He jumps out of airplanes and off El Cap and Half Dome and Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, he's a stud. And I just couldn't believe that a freckle could take him down. So I just couldn't believe it and wouldn't. But at the same time, I knew that I needed to kind of switch roles and take over the finances while he took care of himself and lived fully, if the doctor was right. And of course, we had 2 young children. So, his main desire was to spend time with them. So in that process, here I'd been a stay-at-home mom. I was out of the news business, and I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go chase fires and murderers. And so I wanted to find a way to create money and create passive income while being a mom and being able to attend anything I wanted to raise those kids and go meet with their teachers and, do what I was doing. So I had kept my show. I had a radio show called the It was called The Edge, but I had kept that from my broadcast career. It wasn't making any money at it, but was doing a once a month show on a radio station in San Francisco. And I thought, well, I'll use what my strength. My strength is radio, so I will just use that platform to figure out how to make money. It was just like this aha moment, like, all right, I can do this, and I can use my strengths, which is, hey, I can interview wealthy people. They'll come on my show because it's a San Francisco show and it's got a good audience. And so I just started interviewing people who had created wealth and passive income in a relatively short amount of time so that I could learn from them. And, it turned out that my audience really liked that topic too. I wasn't alone in this pursuit. So the show took off. I ended up taking on sponsors. I ended up taking on one major sponsor who was a real estate investor, kind of unbeknownst to me. It was all new. And so I had to make segments that were interesting, which I was like, oh man, I'm a total sellout. How can I make mortgages and real estate interesting? But what I didn't realize is how very, very fascinating it really is. I would do these segments for him on leverage and how to use it to acquire assets that cash flow and then refinance, take the cash out and do it again, and increase your return because of that, and add to your asset protection and be able to just accelerate the growth of your portfolio through the tool of leverage, and then add to it the tax benefits available to real estate investors and the asset protection. And I mean, it just, the credit repair, and there was so much to learn that our phones just started ringing off the hook, and our show grew. And next thing I know, I was being asked to speak at events and participate in investments, and it just took off.
Wow, that's fascinating. And when did you actually start buying property? I mean, besides your own home, really start going after it in a serious way?
Well, my dad was a dentist, and he was notoriously terrible at investing, as most dentists are. No offense to anyone listening, but, your targets, doctors and dentists are targets because they have money, but they don't have the time to understand investments generally. So I watched my dad sort of lose money on almost every deal growing up. Except real estate. And the real estate he did was always by accident. He'd just kind of buy a house for us to live in and would make $1 million, Mm-hmm. And then any other investment he did was a failure. And I remember my mom saying, we should really do more of this, because she recognized that it was the one thing working. And he was like, oh, Barbara, that's crazy. So, what are you thinking, But had she done it, it was a time, it was the 50s, women weren't really necessarily involved in financial affairs at home, but had they worked together on that and had he listened to her, they would have easily bought many homes in the Silicon Valley they were around $70,000.
Oh my goodness.
$70,000. That's what they.
Oh my gosh. You can't even get a 1-bedroom house for $70,000.
You can't get a car. Come on. It's no. I mean, those homes are 2, 3, 4, 10 million now. I mean,
crazy.
It's nuts. So I think I kind of just understood it from that perspective. And so when we bought our home, that big home I told you about, and we found ourselves broke from the medical bills, the first thing I did was just start renting rooms out. So on the one hand, having a big house with a big mortgage was bad. And on the other hand, it was a wonderful blessing because I had rooms to rent. And so Rich went rock climbing one weekend and he came home to a house full of people. I rented every nook and cranny out. But you know what?
Yeah, Rich, remember your bed over there? Well, there's another guy there.
No, he got to keep his bed. But the kids moved into the same room and we rent. So we had one room each, but then they moved into the same room. We rented out that. And someone had told me about this program where, foreign students you could pile them in. And they each paid $600. I had 4 in one room, so we were able to make our mortgage.
Wow.
So that was kind of my first foray into being a landlord, by accident. And, at some point we're like, all right, we're tired of waiting in line for the bathroom. This isn't the way to do it. But, in the meantime, here I was doing the show and it was taking off. And my sponsor, this mortgage guy and real estate investor, was like, man, my phones are ringing off the hook. This show is a total success. Why don't you get your license and take these calls. And I was like, okay, so I got my mortgage, I got my license and I started doing mortgages. My very first one was $1 million loan refinance. He wanted to refinance, take some cash out and buy some real estate. And I made $10,000 that day. That was back when you could make big bucks in mortgages. You can't, it's harder today. All of a sudden, we didn't have money problems. And we got the good news that Rich was healthy. So, it ended up being a positive experience. Sometimes our greatest transformation in life comes from those scary, difficult times.
Yes, that is so true.
It brings out something inside of us that we wouldn't tap into if we didn't have to, which is desperation, right? But desperation that can often lead us to something we're supposed to be doing in life. And that's what happened.
Wow. And you have, grown a lot since that. Obviously, you moved out of the Bay Area, and you guys are down in Southern Cal now, right? Neighbors, right?
We still have our headquarters in Walnut Creek,
okay.
east of San Francisco. Our staff and everybody's there. But we moved to Malibu because our daughter is an actress, but also because we're surfers. And it's really, really cold up there in Santa Cruz. It's freezing. It's cold here too, but at least in the water. But so it just kept growing. At the time, Rich said, hey, there's this thing called a podcast. It was brand new. So he took my radio show and podcasted on iTunes. So I was one of the first podcasts there. And then, of course, that grew our network even further internationally. So we had 24 countries listening in. I think it's much more now. And, things just kept progressing. And what we found is we were not alone. There were a lot of people trying to figure out how to create passive income for various reasons. For me, my motivation was to be able to continue to be a stay-at-home mom. For other people, it might be they want to do art, or they want to travel, or they, whatever the reasons are. Maybe you want to work for a charity, but it doesn't pay you money. So, there is a great need. Well, I think the biggest one is your audience. It's people who were facing retirement and not there yet. Not having the funds ready and needing to figure out, how am I actually going to do this? Because the plan I was given isn't going to work. So there's a huge, as you know, millions of people in that situation right now.
Yeah, that's the truth, and I think so much of it is really just getting the information, and that's one thing that I think is really fascinating about your show and your book coming up as well. Is just being able to simplify it. Sometimes it seems a little awesome and a little overwhelming. Real estate, even though most folks have, especially listening to this show, have purchased a home at one point or another, but a lot of times it can seem, gosh, if you think about buying apartments or going into development or other areas, it just might seem overwhelming for people. I'd like you, maybe as you got involved, where you really started to learn. I think, we can study, we can read all the books and do all, listen to the podcasts and so forth. But learning really starts, I believe, after that first purchase and where you're renting it out and you're going through the actual process of being an investor. Maybe you could share with us the first thing that you did that really was a learning mistake, for example.
I've got plenty, which I picked from. Now, so, at the time I was in mortgages and I couldn't believe what was happening around me. I submitted a loan application and the bank came back and said, this person doesn't qualify. They don't make enough money. So we changed the income. I was like, what? You can do that? And I came home and I told Rich, they just changed my client's income so that he could qualify. It doesn't sound right. And he goes, no, it actually sounds like fraud. Yes. It is fraud. And I was like, okay, well, do I just tell this guy he can't get the loan? So I did. And of course he went to the mortgage broker next to me and got the loan. So I knew there was a big problem, and it wasn't hard to see. It's amazing that people were ignorant to it, including some of the higher ups in the business. I mean, the National Association of Realtors chief economist said there was no bubble. In 2006, came out with a book on the topic. There's no bubble. I mean, come on. And so it was just painfully obvious. And so on my show, I got to interview experts and say, what's going on? Is this normal? I'm kind of new to all this. It doesn't seem right. And of course they said, no, it's not right. That's why we're selling all of our holdings in California and buying in Texas, where their lending laws are quite strict and their home values are 26% undervalued and job growth is the highest in the nation. And all the opposite is in California. The jobs are leaving and the home prices are way, way beyond salary levels and affordability is out of whack. So sell California and get into Texas. So I gave everybody this advice and we saved thousands of people from losing everything. We helped them sell at the peak in California right before home values crashed. And they exchanged tax-free, tax-deferred with the 1031 exchange into properties in Texas that were at the beginning of their boom and where cash flows were 4 times what they were getting in California, maybe 5 times. And home prices have doubled or tripled since then. So not only did they not lose everything, they gained. They were able to quit their jobs and they had all this cash flow and then values just kept going up. So, I understood the value of experience, talking to people who really get it, not people who just jumped in during the boom, but have been through many cycles. And so we refinanced that house that, I had mentioned that we bought and rented out and everything, but we didn't sell it. And so, that it was kind of like I was giving everybody else advice, but not taking, because, I had personal feelings. I was emotionally involved. That property went from $500,000 to $1.8 million in 10 years. So I just couldn't fathom selling it. But, instead we refinanced, bought all these houses in Texas with that money. And then in 2009, that house was back down to about $800,000. So, technically had we sold it, we would have been $1 million ahead of the game. Had I taken my own advice,
Right.
So instead, we were stuck with this massive loan because we'd taken so much cash out to buy the properties. Now, it worked out because the properties in Texas ended up doing very well. But, it was just one of those like, oh, why didn't I just listen to myself? It's a hard decision to sell your primary residence, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I just couldn't emotionally do it. And that's a lot of what I'm telling people now is, and a lot of people listen and a lot don't, and it's okay. But there are parts of California where it's a fantastic time to sell. Just like it was in 2006, even your primary, unless you're going to stay there forever and you don't care. But if you did sell at the peak, you could buy other properties that are just at the beginning of their boom cycle. It's exactly the same today in parts of the country. And you can just rent for a little while, if that makes sense. We again, didn't follow that advice. We bought one of the cheapest homes in Malibu. It's the most distressed, a 1-bedroom. But, the mortgage actually is much less than rent. So it made sense for us. But, it is a fabulous time to play the markets and time it right if you know how to do that.
Now, there's a lot of economists, as I'm sure you're familiar, that are anticipating another major change happening in the economy and ahead. Are you seeing it? Do you think that's also something that people need to be aware of and be just prudent in terms of their investing about?
Absolutely. I mean, even Donald Trump said it last night, which was funny. He talked about bubbles. There's no question we're in a massive bubble in the stock market. The Dow is 60% overvalued, based on price to earnings ratios, but nobody looks at that anymore. They just look at, it's all speculation now. And so, they look at things like interest rates and, oh my goodness, is the Fed going to raise rates? And if they do, well, that's going to pop the bubble. And so stocks drop and then the Fed doesn't and stocks go up. And it's just a gamble. And, I think when you're 30, you can handle a gamble, if you're in it for the long run. But if you're 50, if you're an old dog, who wants to gamble with a lifetime of savings and investment in something that is so, predictably unpredictable?
Right.
We know that the stock market is in a bubble. The valuations are ridiculous. Square, that little thing that you put on your phone and you can run your credit cards on it, that IPO'd last fall. It was valued at, I think, $7 billion or $9 billion or something. It's never once shown a profit, not once, in its very short life. And yet it's somehow being valued at $9 billion. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And so we're seeing that there's everything cycles. It's very predictable. And the cycle that we're in right now, at least for sure in Northern California and parts of Southern and New York and Seattle and Portland and Denver, is that these companies, high-tech companies, have had a massive, massive amount of money just being thrown in from all around the world. There's no place for investors to put money. So they're putting it into the Silicon Valley and high-tech here in the U.S. And so with too much money pouring in, there was just way too much investor capital being thrown at companies that didn't deserve that money and don't know how to pay it back. And yet those companies would receive the money. It's borrowed money. They just close shop. If it doesn't work, no harm done, right? Just, that idea didn't work. Let's move on to the next. And investors lose their money. They don't care. But they get the money and they hire people. They hire secretaries, receptionists for $100,000, $200,000. It's nuts. They lease out spaces in San Francisco that, a startup could never afford. But when you're being thrown investor money, hey, why not? You're 21 years old. Let's have a nice, view office in San Francisco. Now, that happens every decade. It's irrational exuberance. It's expected, and it's what's happening. And finally, investors are not seeing the return, and they're pulling out. So for the first time this decade, we're seeing venture capital pull out of the Silicon Valley, and that is going to affect real estate there. It's already the high end is slowing down. Already, we're seeing commercial leases, be vacant because the big players are pulling out. They can't afford those leases now.
Now, we've got our listeners many of them are already retired and on fixed incomes. Some of them lost a chunk of their retirement in 2007, 2008. And so the funds that they have, they, are very, very concerned about. And but yet at the same time, there's a strong need for cash flow and a way to increase income. What do you say to those folks in terms of where should they be going or not going in terms of the reserves that they have, the funds that they have, and they want to increase their cash flow and their monthly income?
I think anything you've been taught in the past is just no longer true today. And it's really our fault in terms of our generation. The baby boomers have been the largest generation, in history until now. The millennials have taken over. They're bigger. But for the last 50 years, we have influenced the economy. Everything we do has affected the economy. Everything we spend money on. And so when we were buying potato chips as teenagers, those companies took off. When we were going to college, well, guess what? There was a university boom. When we started buying houses and getting married and having children, guess what? There was a real estate boom. And then when we started investing in the stock market, there was a stock market boom because there's a lot of us and we have a lot of money. And now what are we doing? We are retiring. We are taking our money out of the stock market. There's no generation behind us that's going to replace it. So right now, the corporations are, borrowing low interest rate dollars and buying their own stock back to kind of make up for that shortfall because baby boomers are taking their money out. So you have to know that what has been true in the past is not going to be true in the future. Everything's changing, and so much of it has to do with demographics. And of course, just, technology and the changes happening there, the automation and the robots and everything. I mean, we are in exciting new times, but if you don't pay attention, you'll get left behind. So you can't be passive. As much as I talk about passive income, you cannot be passive about your money. If you invest in bonds, you need to understand that that is debt. And so far, it doesn't look like municipalities or states or the government knows how to pay that debt back. If you invested in bonds in Detroit or in San Juan, then you're not going to get your money back. So, typically bonds have been considered the safest investment. I disagree. So, you've got to look at, in my opinion, I'm not fully, how do I say this? I still have a thriving business and I'm very actively involved in it. But I can tell you that any investment where I put my dollars, I better have collateral. And it's collateral that I know I'm going to get. that nobody can take that from me. So whether I'm a private lender with my funds secured to real estate, or in syndications where we're buying land and entitling it and flipping it, I know that any dollar I put in anything has collateral, so that if worst case scenario, I end up with something. Whereas that's not the case in some of these other, paper products. So that's my thought.
Right. Well, I mean, some of these economists are saying, we could see a Dow go down to 3,000. I mean, to just a
Harry Dent.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm talking about.
I'm interviewing today for my show. Yep.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, but I mean, if that happens, is real estate even a good place to be?
It very well could happen. I think that the administration is going to fake it as long as they can, whether the current one, it doesn't really even matter who gets voted next. It's all corrupt. It's all cover up. Nobody wants a stock market crash on their dime. So nobody wants, financial Armageddon during their term. So what's probably going to keep happening for a little while is government interference. The low interest rate scenarios, the negative interest rate scenarios, the quantitative easing, throwing trillions of dollars out of thin air into the economy to keep it propped up. That's going to probably continue because any interest rate hike, it could take just a little tiny prick wherever it comes from to pop that bubble on Wall Street. Now, so I guess what I'm saying is I'm not really worried about it happening right now. It will happen eventually. It's not going to happen before the election. Let's just put it that way. Now, how would that affect real estate? In my opinion, there are certain things that people will spend their money on, and it is the fundamentals. So when it comes down to, you're broke, you still want a place to live. Right. And so, where's that going to be? Now, there are parts of the U.S. that aren't really so dependent on this real estate, or I should say the stock market bubble. But the high end it's the high end that has profited from the bubble, and it's the high end that will lose from it. So a major stock market crash is going to affect Miami, New York, San Francisco, LA, Orange County, San Diego, Seattle, the big glitzy cities. Is it going to affect Cleveland, Ohio? Is it going to affect Dayton or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? I don't think so. Those people have never invested in the stock market. Now, will the companies that they work for be affected? Possibly, but that's why investors have got to pay attention to the future. So there will be Armageddon for sure in some categories. Last night's debate was all about jobs, creating jobs. Listen, people who have lost jobs, they're not going to get those same jobs back. Those jobs are gone. And Hillary and Donald can talk about bringing jobs back to the U.S. They're not coming back. 70% of jobs today are going to be gone in 10, 20 years because of automation and robotics and, cars that drive themselves and blah, blah, blah. The world is changing. And if you don't pay attention, you're going to get left behind. It's that simple. And so, if you've got to look at jobs that are here to stay. So, we have a massive housing development syndication we're doing in Reno. The jobs in Reno are the future. It's Tesla, it's Amazon, Google, Switch. These are companies that are on the cutting edge. In order to bring the Tesla battery factory to Nevada, and the deal that they signed there was that Tesla has to provide education for Nevadians. They have to hire Nevadians for those jobs. And nobody knows how to work a battery of this kind. It's all new. And so the University of Reno is creating new programs and new education for people to understand how to work in those new world, kind of industries. And that's what needs to happen. So you've got to find, if you want a job, you need to find a job that is irreplaceable, where you can't be outsourced and you can't be, competing with a machine. And so, so when you look at, I'm not worried about our developments in Reno. Those are solid. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I just bought an $85,000 duplex, and I think I paid $50,000, but we put money into it, and now it's $85,000, almost new, rents for $550 on each side. So we're getting about $1,100 in gross incomes on this $85,000 property. It is across the street from a new Hollywood film studio and the new CSX train. Warren Buffett's company there that they're building. They're just building it. This is, again, the future. A lot of people don't realize that Hollywood is not really in Hollywood anymore, just like the Silicon Valley is not in the Silicon Valley anymore. It's moving. It's moving to cheaper places where, these companies can pay less and startups can thrive. So Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is second to LA in film production. Who knew that?
I would have never known that. Wow.
Exactly. People don't know. That's what I do at Real Wealth Network, is find out where the job's going, the jobs that are here to stay. When you've got a CSX being built in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for train transport, there's some big dollars, billions of dollars going into renovation there. That's not going to just disappear with the stock market crash.
Wow, fascinating. Wow. Well, you it's neat because you look at real estate investing from a much more macro vision, which I really like, and I like the fact that you are talking to economists and trying to get a bigger picture, because that I believe is real estate is the best place to be, and there are markets, and there are some markets better than others, and so forth, and there's different types of real estate, that are better than others depending on the market and so forth. But it's great that you're doing that kind of analysis on a regular basis, and hopefully, that's something that our listeners could tap into. I know you have newsletters and various things that go out and various types of programs and so forth that people could plug into that would help them to be better informed, which is great. Looking at your business, what's really the sort of the one thing that just really excites you about where you're going and where you're taking your business at this time?
Well, I just, as you could tell, very passionate about it. I'm at a place where it's really coming from my heart more than, in the beginning it was desperation, but we have achieved our goals and we're living off passive income. So what we're doing now is more focused on helping others do the same. And so when I get an email with somebody, again, this is a dentist wife, I just got one today. She said up until now, they were just terrified because he's ready to retire, he's tired, and they don't have what they need, and they're used to a pretty high-level lifestyle. And so we've helped them to where she's at a point where, they can sleep at night. And that makes me really, really happy. So I love helping people. Our Real Wealth Investor Academy is an online educational program where we just do short videos to try to simplify the concepts of investing so that anyone can understand it. And we bring in very high-level attorneys and CPAs and experts, self-directed IRA investors and so forth, who will really simplify the process through these videos to help our members just, get it and see things from a different perspective. And we decided as a group, we have a lot of millennials who work for us. And, at our last company retreat, they said, we're not really in the business of education. We are in the business of real estate investing. So why don't we just donate all of the money that comes into the educational piece to our foundation? And we're like, yeah, we love that idea. So, we made that education $10 a month. So anyone, even a student, could afford it. And just last month, or I should say this month, we wrote a check we have 4 different charities. We wrote a check to $5,000 to each of them. And Operation Smile was one in which another anonymous donor multiplied our donation 9 times.
Oh, neat.
They're really cool. It's really cool. So I'm excited about that.
Well, yeah. It's so refreshing to see too, because the folks that we're talking to, not all of them are struggling, but there are those that are, and that maybe Social Security is their prime income, and so we're really committed here at the Old Dogs Network to really not charge for things that we do, and the fact that you've got something that's only $10 a month, I mean that's almost like not charging anything, and yet with such value, I think that's really awesome. And plus the money's all going to charity and good cause too. So I mean that's just refreshing to hear. I'm too used to hearing the stories of, the $50,000, consultants and so forth that, it just gets kind of crazy out there.
But people seem to like spending money on that. Maybe they're afraid to use that money to invest. I don't know, but you can get the same high level education at our academy for the $10 that you could spend, the $50,000. I had a guy come to me and say, wow, I do what you do, but I charge $100,000 per client. I was like, okay.
Well, I think you hit on it a little bit too. There are people that like to spend that money, and it's always great because then you can basically say, "Wow, I spent all my money on your courses. I really don't have any money to buy real estate anymore."
Yeah, right. You don't have to do it.
So I don't have to make that big step, right?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I still have people come to me, and it's very funny. I would give it away for free. It's not a profit center for us, but we just felt that, you've got to pay something. $10 a month isn't much, but it's still, you got to pay something to show your commitment. And we still have people come and ask for it for free. And it's just so funny. It's like, come on, if you can't pay $10 a month for this, then you're not ready. It's not for you.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this time is zipping by, and I'm really upset here because I have like 50 other questions I want to ask you. So
Talk too much.
we may have to snag you on a future episode here, and I think you got a lot of great information to offer. But this is the time when we sort of wrap it up, and in that I ask you a series of quick questions here about some of your favorite things and so forth. Are you ready for that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. First question. What is your favorite real estate book?
Well, I wrote one.
Okay. We are going to give a plug for that one, but besides your own, we're going to...
Well, it's not a real estate book, but it's a wealth book, and it's called The Science of Getting Rich. And that is a game changer, because if you don't have the wealth consciousness, it doesn't matter what investment you choose. You've got to be able to shift your consciousness around and being comfortable around wealth. Very often people, when money comes to them, they're not comfortable. They reject it, So Science of Getting Rich, great book.
Great. Favorite business book?
Ooh, that is good. I would say Extreme Success, written by my husband. That sounds like such a plug, but it really is good. He really teaches you how to break through the fears that prevent people from, moving forward with some of their brilliant ideas that really could make them a lot of money. But you got to break through the fear first.
Oh, that's great. How about your most valuable website for success? And of course, this would include your own.
Most valuable website for success. This is going to sound funny, but the Daily Om, it's kind of a meditative website where you can listen to meditations. And that is a very, very powerful thing to help, get centered before making big decisions.
All right. How about your favorite app?
My favorite app in real estate?
It could be real estate, could be business, could be just your favorite app. Some people will say, well, I like my iTunes app or something, but it could be anything. We don't
For sure, my podcast app. I mean, I'm a podcast junkie, so.
Same here.
Yeah.
All right. And this question, let's say we did have this terrible crash, but this time, you lost everything, absolutely everything. And, or there was some sort of major apocalypse or what have you, but you still have $1,000 in the bank. Okay. Mm-hmm. And knowing what you know, what would you do to launch your real estate investing business?
Oh my gosh. If I could just talk to my 10-year ago self, I would say that I would just say that money is totally not important. It's all about relationships and networking. So you don't need money, you need knowledge. At some point, my mentor told me, I had many, but one mentor said, eventually you're going to run out of your own money. So you have to learn how to use OPM, other people's money. So I wouldn't care that I have $1,000. I'd still build a multi-million-dollar rental fund or investment fund or whatever, because I have the education and information that other people need. I know what works and what doesn't, and I know how to stay on top of the trends. So yeah, I would not be afraid, but also during 2009, it was a hard time. It was a very hard time. And I remember thinking, I still I've still got the ocean here. I can still go surfing. I can live in my car. I mean, we live in one of the greatest places in the world, and you're not really going to be that poor, even if you're poor in the U.S. You're not that poor, so I don't worry about it.
That's so great. Great. You had mentioned your book. I want to bring it up again because I think it's a great resource, even though I'm still waiting for my copy to arrive in the mail here. Retire Rich with Rentals. And now it is available? It's on Amazon?
Yep. Retire Rich with Rentals. It's on Amazon, and it's also in Kindle form.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Yep. That's great. And just so everybody listening knows, and if you're driving or jogging, you don't have to stop or try to write something down. Everything that she's mentioning here is going to be summarized in our show notes, and including any links to her book as well, and her website, and contact information and so forth too. So great. We'll have that included in our show notes. Also, how can people get a hold of you?
Sure, you can go to realwealthnetwork.com. You'll get data on the markets that we talked about and where jobs are moving and all that. You can read the blog and lots of free information at realwealthnetwork.com, and you can join for free there. And then on iTunes, you can search for me. It's The Real Wealth Show.
That's great. And you also have a free consultation, right, if folks contact you or call into your organization?
Absolutely. We have 4 investment counselors at Real Wealth Network. They're all active investors, really, really bright, brilliant people. So when you join, you can meet with one of them. There's no fee for working with us. If you end up buying a property, let's say in like I said, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, like the duplex I bought, the broker on that end pays us a broker-to-broker fee. So our members don't have to pay us for that membership or for that service.
Oh, that's great. Do you also have a toll-free number?
We do, but I'll give you 925-280-2830 is our office.
Okay, great. Kind of got you off guard on that one.
Well, it's 888-RW Network is our toll free.
Oh, okay, great,
yeah.
Great. Oh, wonderful. Well, gosh, Kathy, this has been fantastic. So much information and so little time. It drives me crazy sometimes.
It goes fast.
It goes faster the older you get. And I'm older than you, so it went really fast for me. But, and closing out, we have a tradition here that our guests get to give us their best old dog howl before we close out. So, Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and just hand it over to you to be able to close us out with your howl here.
Okay, I'm gonna try to sound like my dog Luna, who when she howls, it's really because she's just having fun and wants to play. So I think it kind of goes like this. Woo! No, it's not like that at all, but it was my best effort.
That was good.
Now she's looking at me like, no, that wasn't it. No, she doesn't even know what that was.
You did a great job. Great job. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us. What a thrill for our listeners and for me to be able to, just ask the questions that I'm hoping that the folks listening also would think to ask. But I think there's some great information. It's good to know there's a place we can go to get more information. Especially, I really love the fact that you're looking at emerging markets. You're looking at, economic changes and things. And so as we do invest, we can make wise decisions and be able to pick the best places to do so. So I really, really thank you for that. I also want to thank all of our old dog listeners out there for joining us today. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we greatly appreciate it. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward, and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.